Deltarune tomorrow. Man, I've been wanting to say that for like a year now. Anyways, hi, I'm some random frog, and I do things sometimes. So, Deltarune Chapter 5 comes out tomorrow. Super excited, and before the chapter comes out, I just want to make a quick video talking about my predictions and theories for what's going to happen in the chapter, as well as show my bingo board for the chapter. Let's just get into it. Firstly, I just want to go over my general predictions as to how the chapter is going to go. Most people who have played the game and spent time in the community can agree that the Dark World of this chapter is in some way going to involve the Flower King and Asgore. There's a bunch of in-game evidence pointing toward this, and I'm not going to go over any of it in detail, but I think it's very likely that Asgore will create the fountain, and the Flower King will be a part of the Dark World. Yes, I said a part of the Dark World, not the whole thing. I think the Dark World will be spread throughout the festival and hometown, and the Flower King will just be a part of it, likely the final area where the boss will be. Now, why do I think this? GoldPro explains very well in his Roots Theory video why a festival or hometown fountain makes the most sense, and I agree with what he says. I'll mostly just be summarizing one of his points, so if you want to hear a more in-depth and well put together explanation, please check out his video. If you'll remember, in Chapter 4 when we hear Asgore talking to himself in the Holiday family household, we hear him mention that he has in his possession a black shard, and that he'll show not just Toriel, but everyone, that he, quote, just wanted to protect everyone. Most people have drawn from this the conclusion that Asgore will use the Black Shard to create a dark fountain, with the intention of showing everyone in hometown, especially Toriel, something probably related to how he got fired from being chief of police. Now, if we assume that all of that is true, it brings us to a problem with the Flower King Dark World. If Asgore wanted to show Toriel as well as everyone else, why would he do it in his flower shop? Toriel would never step foot in there, and there's no way he could convince everyone else to enter his store, let alone fit them all in there. So, instead of bringing everyone to the fountain, he brings the fountain to everyone at the festival. This is why I think a festival dark fountain is more likely. Again, I'm really just going over the same stuff GoldPro did in his Roots Theory video, so please check his video out. But, of course, if there is a hometown fountain, wouldn't it be gigantic? It would include all of the buildings and their insides as well, right? Well, this is where I get into speculation territory, but I suppose that's the point of a prediction. I think that if the fountain is made at the festival, it's likely that most everyone would have their doors closed, as they would be all at the festival, and all the stores would have stands outside. In the screenshot of the festival we have, Sans is outside his store with a hot dog stand, and I think it's likely other stores and buildings will be similar. In the Dark World, all these closed doors will be great doors, ones that we can't open, but perhaps as part of Asgore's plan, he leaves his flower shop doors open, or maybe even the basement door open. But this is mostly speculation. It's totally possible that I'm completely wrong and the Dark World is just in the Flower King. I think the secret boss for the chapter will be fought solo. We saw Chris alone in the trailer with one of Omega Flowey's attacks, which could suggest the secret boss is a solo Chris fight against some sort of Deltarune Flowey analog. But we have also gotten solo secret boss fights for all of the Fun Gang except for Ralsei. So, it's possible that the secret boss is a solo fight with him. This does bring up the problem of how we, as the Soul, would control Ralsei, but maybe Chris just closes their eyes or something. I also want to talk about how I think the chapter is structured in general, because I've seen some different opinions online about the order of things in the chapter. I've both heard talk of the festival being first and the Dark World being after, and also the inverse. I personally think that the festival would come first, just because of the pacing for the chapter. If the entire Dark World comes first and the festival is after, it would feel off balance, because the climax, the final boss, would be halfway through the chapter, and there would just be a bunch of chill stuff after. If it were instead a shorter section, more so as a resolution or epilogue, I feel like the build-up for the festival since the beginning of the game wouldn't really pay off, and it would just be underwhelming. I think it would be more similar to Chapter 4, where we have a light world section before the Dark World as an introduction. I think we will see the return of Noelle as a party member in the Dark World, as there's a screenshot of her with Susie and Chris at the festival. If there's a festival Dark World, she'd be in it too. We'll probably see what the 5 Shadow Crystals make, and Sean will say the word that Toby chose to omit when teasing dialogue, even though we all know what it is anyway. I mean, like, come on, what else could it be? I've seen talk that there will be some sort of quest system, and I think that while there's no way to say for certain whether this is even likely or not, I think it would be pretty cool. Finally, I think that the chapter will end with the roaring happening. Most people agree with this because Chapters 6 and 7 are still very shrouded in mystery, and we got some foreshadowing about one last adventure before the sun goes down completely in the newsletter, suggesting Chapters 6 and 7 are much darker, probably literally if the roaring happens. Oh, and how could I forget? The eggs. It's assumed that the fifth and perhaps final egg will be somewhere with a field of crops. As the Forgotten Man says, quote, "On Sunday I harvest the wheat." If this is the final egg, I hope we get to see what the Forgotten Man actually looks like or what's behind the tree. I assume, at least, we'll get some more lore on Chris's past and trauma. Now on to a few theories that others have made that I think could come true in Chapter 5. First, as I mentioned before, Root's theory. Mainly that the weird route in Chapter 5 will parallel the third Sword Route game. I think if a Hometown Dark World happens in Chapter 5, it's almost guaranteed that this theory will be right. I also believe in the theory that Mike is friends. There are a lot of parallels and connections that are outlined very well in the video by Seek's stuff, so please check that out. I doubt we'll just get a straight-up answer from the Demon Cat itself. Like, Friend's not just gonna appear on the screen and say, "It's me, the friend inside you, and also I'm Mike!" But there's a chance we'll get more evidence towards this theory in Chapter 5, probably in the Mike room. I think the theory that Chris loses their hand is interesting and could come true, but it might not happen in Chapter 5. I hope we'll at least see more foreshadowing relating to them losing their hand if this theory is correct. And, of course, the elephant in the room, the Roaring Knight. Most people have come to a consensus about the real identity of Knight, who is obviously Des. Just kidding, it's Rudy. Yeah, that's fucking right. All in on Rudy Knight. Rudy is the Knight and everyone else is wrong and I'm awesome. Okay, well, while it would be funny to just leave it at that, I would like to explain a bit more. Yes, I do think that Rudy Knight is possible. He's the best candidate for what Susie was saying in Chapter 4. He's the husband of the mayor, he's best friends with Asgore, the former police chief, and we see him in church. Okay, yeah, the third link isn't super strong, but it's better than some other Knight candidates I could mention. Additionally, I think it's likely he's the old friend Asgore mentioned when talking to himself, and maybe was even the one who gave Asgore the Black Shard. Of course, Death Knight is still very much possible, but I have a big problem with Death Knight. Most people believe that Des is the Knight, but most people also believe that Des is the voice in the code, the lost girl. So how could these both be true? She's right there! She's not really lost, is she? There is also the theory that Des is somehow fused with darkness, and that's why the Knight can shapeshift, why it looks like that, and how Des can still be lost since she's trapped within the body of the Knight. And while I do like the idea of this, I still think it has a few problems. It's saying that the Knight is similar to the Titan, right? And the Titan is a being that has no consciousness and only exists to destroy. But the Knight clearly has intentions and is working towards a certain goal, likely the same goal as Carol and Chris. If its only goal was destruction, it would have caused the wrong by now. So how does it make sense that Des is trapped and has no agency, but the Knight clearly does? Of course, I'm completely open to counterpoints and discussion here. I do think Death Knight is very possible, and honestly probably just the right answer, but again, I just have some problems with it. There is a personal theory for Chapter 5 I want to share, though, and it has to do with the boss. Now, this isn't something I'm going all in on, it's just an idea. Ever since I first saw that one Jackenstein room with the strange symbols on the wall, it has always stuck with me. It could just be a reference to chess theory, as it has a queen, king, bishop, and knight, but also has a sword and a flower. I had always thought these represented the final bosses of each chapter, but that falls apart, since there's no TV for Tenna and there's no symbol for the Titan. But maybe it doesn't fall apart. Perhaps it could instead represent one of the bosses in each chapter. The Knight is the secret boss of Chapter 3, so it is still a boss, and the Bishop could very well represent the Titan because of the location of the Dark World and the Titan, which is the church. That then brings us to the two remaining icons, the flower and the sword. In this video, I'm just going to focus on the flower and not the sword. Now, of course, the flower probably represents Asgore, who is probably the boss of Chapter 5, but if Asgore is the Flower King, it feels a bit strange to me that he'd be the boss. We already have a king as a boss, it just feels a bit too similar. But there's another possibility. Remember the 7 flowers Asgore has in the back room of his shop? And the Omega Flowey attack we saw in the trailer? And the conspicuous gold flower in the newsletter? I think it's entirely possible that there is a Flowey analog as a boss fight, and the Jackenstein room has a symbol for this boss, rather than Asgore. Of course, this is just speculation. So, that's all the predictions and theories and stuff I have relating to Chapter 5, but I also made a bingo board. I made this before compiling all of my predictions and theories, so not all of them are present on the board. I'll just go over all of these quickly, since most of them are pretty simple. Previously unused weapon or item obtainable. By this, I mean something like the Sky Mantle, Twisted Sword, or Revive Bright. Something that is in the game, but not able to be obtained as of Chapter 4. Chapter ends with the roaring happening. I talked about this earlier. Soul switches hosts. If this were to happen, I'd assume it would switch to Susie in the regular route, and Noelle in the weird route. New unused dialogue. Unused referencing the voice in the code, assumed to be Des. This is basically a free space, but there's a chance we don't get it. Ralsei Origin explains, I feel like we've waited long enough to hear his backstory, so it's probably about time Toby shed some light on it. Susie or Noelle find out about the soul. Again, it feels like it's been long enough that the other characters should start catching on to the soul. Asgore sees Toriel with Sans. Most people assume this is how the fountain is created, as Gerson said the vast garden will be charred in an inferno of jealousy. At the festival, Asgore will be jealous of Sans and Toriel going together. Knight identity teased or revealed. This could be as blatant as the knight actually being revealed, but I'll also count it if they take their helmet off, but we can't see who's beneath or something like that. This one's a bit loose, so I'll decide whether I got it or not after playing the chapter. Egg lore or explanation. Again, I talked about this one earlier. The hope is something relating to the question like, why eggs? Why trees? Who is the forgotten man? But I'll also count anything in the egg room that relates to Chris's trauma. Prophecy was altered previously. This is one I got from Discord, and I just think it's an interesting concept and makes sense with the themes of Deltarune about retelling stories and altering fate. Maybe one of the prophecy glasses we saw was actually added retroactively for one reason or another. I think the best way for me to confidently cross this off is if we go into the church and read the scriptures that have the prophecy on them. Maybe there will be something that suggests the text of the prophecy was erased or written over, or maybe a page is conveniently missing. Lightner dies. This feels like the appropriate escalation of stakes, as we've seen that the Dark World and the Roaring Knight's plan have real effect on people in the Light World, like Undyne being taken to the shelter or the Titan wrecking the church. So the next logical step for the story is to raise the stakes even higher, and what better way to do that than to have a Lightner die? Friend sighting or encounter, pretty self-explanatory. Free space. Of course, I could have gone with a given like, Susie appears in the chapter, but I didn't. So, cry about it? Weird Route parallels third Sword Route game. Again, I talked about this before, Roots Theory. More lore on Chris's past or Des. This one is similar to the egg lore one, so if the lore on Chris's past happens only through the egg room, I won't count this one. Unique path or content for aborted Weird Route, Chapter 2 or 4. If you abort the Weird Route in Chapter 2, you get the Thorn Ring, which is the only way to keep it through all the chapters, and might be the only way to make the Twisted Sword. And maybe if you abort it in Chapter 4, there will be unique dialogue by Birdly or something. New pink and gold character. I mean an actual new character we haven't seen before. And also not just one happens to have pink and gold in its palette like the Floridans. Now that I think about it, this might also just be a given, as it is the field of pink and gold, but since the colors also have a meaning within the game, I'll only count it if those connect too. Again, for more information, check out Seek's video. Different soul color for Secret Boss. Self-explanatory, maybe purple, maybe blue, maybe a new one. We find out how long it took her to smile. This is related to the mysterious Deltarune website ARG, where the question, how long did it take her to smile, was posed. I'm not going to go super into this, check out the videos on this by GoldPro. One of our crack theories is correct. This is a more personal one. Me and my friends did an activity a while ago where we made the most outlandish Deltarune theories we could think of, such as the Deltarune nuclear war theory, Apple holiday theory, Spamton as BoJack Horseman, and many more. My friend uploaded on his channel, so please watch it, it's really funny. I know I've been saying that a lot, but it's because they're all good, alright? New battle theme, not boss. I wanted to have one related to music on here. I just think it makes sense for there to be a new battle theme, since from now on it feels much more like a Sanctuary battle theme. The main motif is the Sanctuary leitmotif, so I think it'd feel strange to have as a battle theme when we aren't in the Sanctuaries. Weird Art has significantly different ending. Up until now, the Weird Art has done quite a bit, but it's all still contained within each chapter, and they all still have basically the same endings. So I mean something big, like maybe in the normal route the roaring happens, but in the Weird Route it doesn't. Something that will actually cause a big split between the two routes and what happens within chapters. Roots is a location in the hometown. Again, Roots theory. Shadow crystals create pure crystal. Most people assume that the thing Sham is making from the shadow crystals will be the pure crystal. Hometown, festival, or fountain. Again, I talked about this one earlier. And here are all the ones I couldn't fit. I'm not going to talk about any of them for time's sake. And that's it. I'm super excited for Chapter 5, and I will be uploading my playthrough on my second channel, An Arbitrary Toad. I apologize if this video is a little rough. This is the first real scripted video I've made, and the first video I've ever posted to this channel, on top of me only really having about 4 days to make this video since I've been on vacation for the past week and a half. I might make more Deltarune related content on this channel, but I'm going to mostly devote this channel to game dev stuff. I am an amateur game dev, and I have some projects I've been working on that I might reveal soon. So, if you like that kind of stuff, you can subscribe and I'll try not to take too long before uploading again. Well, that's all I have, so as they say, ta-ta and farewell.